Greetings and salutations. This is the Adjutant. I want to start today's conversation with a story. Several years ago, I found myself talking with two retired veterans at an event. They had remarkably similar backgrounds. Both had served honorably, both retired after long military careers, both received military retired pay, both had earned VA disability compensation, both had access to many of the same benefits. On paper, they looked almost identical, but as the conversation continued, I noticed something fascinating. The first veteran spent most of the afternoon talking about what he couldn't afford anymore. He talked about rising prices, unexpected bills, and how retirement wasn't turning out the way that he had imagined. He wasn't irresponsible. He certainly wasn't lazy. He simply felt like he was constantly trying to catch up. Now, the second veteran had a completely different outlook. He talked about traveling with his family. He mentioned helping his grandchildren with college expenses. He discussed investments, opportunities he was considering. He wasn't worried about money. He wasn't bragging. There was simply a sense of peace about him. As I listened to both men, I kept asking myself just one question. How did two people who started from almost the same place end up living such different lives? It wasn't because he had won the lottery. It wasn't because one had inherited millions of dollars. It wasn't because one had somehow discovered the secret investment nobody else knew about. The answer was much simpler. Over the course of many years, they made different financial decisions. Not one giant decision, hundreds of ordinary decisions. And those ordinary decisions eventually produced extraordinary differences. That conversation has stayed with me for a long time because over the years, I have seen the same pattern repeated again and again. During my Army career, as an attorney, and especially during more than 2 decades working with veterans through the Department of Veterans Affairs, I have met people from every financial background imaginable. Some enlisted soldiers retired with remarkable financial freedom. Some senior officers struggled financially. Some veterans with modest incomes quietly built wealth. Others with 6 figures somehow always seemed to be one paycheck away from financial stress. Now, after seeing this pattern for decades, I've come to believe something that may surprise you. Income matters, but decisions matter even more. Today, I want to share 7 money decisions that constantly separate wealthy veterans from everyone else. These aren't complicated Wall Street strategies. They're not get-rich-quick schemes. They're not based on predicting the stock market. They're simply habits of thinking that, when practiced consistently over time, produce dramatically different outcomes. Now, before we begin, let me say something very important, okay? When I use the word wealth, I'm not simply talking about having a large bank account. Real wealth means having options. It means sleeping well at night because your finances are under control. It means helping your children without putting yourself in financial danger. It means enjoying retirement instead of fearing it. It means generosity. It means freedom. And perhaps most importantly, it means peace. That's the kind of wealth we're talking about today. So let's begin with decision number 1. Okay? Wealthy veterans spend less than they are capable of spending. Now that sounds almost too simple. In fact, you may be tempted to skip right on over it. Don't. Please don't, because there's a lot of research into this video. Because the single principle quietly drives almost every other financial success you'll ever experience. One of the greatest financial dangers in the military is something very few people ever talk about, and that's lifestyle inflation. Now, here's what happens. A young soldier gets promoted, their income increases. Instead of investing the difference, they increase their spending. A few years later, another promotion arrives. The paycheck grows again, so does the lifestyle. A nicer vehicle, a more expensive home, additional monthly payments, more subscriptions, more vacations, more things. Everything increases with income. Every increase in income is immediately matched by an increase in spending. The result? From the outside, everything looks successful, but underneath the surface, very little wealth is actually being created. I've watched this happen over and over throughout military careers. And here's what's interesting, folks. The veterans who ultimately become financially secure often look surprisingly ordinary while they're building wealth. They don't feel pressure to impress people. They don't buy every new vehicle that catches their attention. They don't constantly upgrade everything simply because they can. I'm looking at you, iPhone, Apples. Instead, every raise becomes an opportunity, not an excuse. They ask themselves a different question. Instead of asking, what can I afford now? They ask, how can this increase improve my future? That one question changes everything. Now, let's imagine you have two staff sergeants receive exactly the same pay raise. One immediately commits every extra dollar to a higher car payment. The other increases his TSP contribution. 10 years later, two decisions no longer look equal. One created another bill, the other created another asset. Now multiply that pattern over 20 or 30 years. That's how wealth quietly grows. You know, one of the greatest misconceptions about wealthy people is that they spend extravagantly all the time. Many actually don't. Many of the financially successful veterans I've known drive reliable vehicles, live in comfortable homes, not extravagant homes, avoid unnecessary debt, and invest the difference consistently. Now, that's not because they're cheap, it's because they understand something many people never learn. Every dollar can only have one assignment. It can either improve today or improve tomorrow. It cannot fully do both. Now, do not misunderstand me. I'm not saying you should never enjoy your money. You've earned the right to enjoy your retirement. You know, take a vacation, enjoy dinner with your family, celebrate meaningful milestones. Life isn't about deprivation. It's about intentionality. The wealthy veterans I've known don't eliminate enjoyment. They eliminate unnecessary financial pressure. That's a very different mindset. And here's something I've noticed throughout my own journey. The more financial margin you create, the calmer your decisions become. You stop making choices out of fear. You stop reacting to every unexpected expense. You stop worrying every time the economy changes. Financial margin creates emotional margin, and emotional margin often leads to better decisions. Now, remember the two veterans from the beginning of today's conversation? Do you? Well, we're beginning to understand why their lives look so different. One increased spending every time increased income came in. The other quietly invested the difference. Neither decision seemed dramatic at the time, but compounded over decades, the result became impossible to ignore. And that brings us to decision number 2. This is where I believe many veterans unintentionally leave hundreds of thousands of dollars on the table, not because they don't work hard, but because they misunderstand the incredible value of the benefits they've already earned. Decision number 2 is this: protect your benefits before you chase investments. Now, I know that may sound backwards. Most financial conversations start with stocks, mutual funds, real estate, cryptocurrency. Those things certainly have their place. But if I were sitting across the table from a young soldier, a military family, or a veteran getting ready to retire, I wouldn't begin there. I would begin by asking one simple question: are you protecting everything you've already earned? Okay? You see, one of the greatest financial advantages military members and veterans have isn't found on Wall Street. It's found in their benefits. Over the years, I've watched people spend countless hours trying to earn an extra 1 or 2% on an investment while completely overlooking benefits worth tens or even hundreds of thousands of dollars. That doesn't make sense. Think about that, okay? Think about that. If you're eligible for VA disability compensation, understand the process and pursue the benefits that you've earned. If you're still serving, contribute enough to your TSP to maximize every advantage available to you. Understand your military retirement system. Know what TRICARE provides for your family. Research your state's veterans benefits. Look into property tax exemptions, education benefits, survivor benefits, life insurance options. These aren't simply nice perks, they're part of your overall financial plan. Now, one of the things that I've learned during more than 2 decades working with veterans is that financially successful veterans tend to know their benefits remarkably well. Not because they're trying to take advantage of the system, but because they understand something important. When you earn a benefit through your service, using it wisely isn't taking advantage of anything. It's being a good steward of what you've earned. I often tell people that one of the safest investments you'll ever make is understanding your benefits before you need them. Because once retirement arrives, once health changes, or once life throws an unexpected challenge your way, it's too late to wish you had learned earlier. Knowledge has a way of paying dividends long after you acquired it. Now, let me say something that may surprise you. I have met veterans with modest investment portfolios who are financially secure because they maximize every military and VA benefit available to them. I've also met veterans with significant investment accounts who still struggle because they failed to understand the benefits sitting right in front of them. Both matter, but protecting your financial foundation comes first. Build the foundation, then build the house. Not the other way around. That leads us naturally into decision number 3. Buy assets before you buy status. If there is one thing or one lesson I have seen repeated over and over again, is this. Many people spend money trying to look wealthy. Actually, wealthy people spend money becoming wealthy. Those are 2 completely different goals. Our culture is constantly encouraging us to signal success, drive the newest vehicle, own the biggest house, wear the expensive watch, upgrade everything. And there's nothing inherently wrong with enjoying nice things. The question is timing. The wealthy veteran asks a different question. Will this purchase increase my future income or simply increase my monthly payments? Now, that's a powerful question. Because assets and liabilities don't behave the same way. And assets tend to put money back into your financial life. A liability generally takes money out of it. Now, imagine receiving a sizable tax refund, bonus, or retroactive VA payment. One person immediately purchases a luxury vehicle. Another pays off high-interest debt, increases investment, and sets aside an emergency fund. 5 years later, one payment has disappeared into depreciation. The other decision continues producing value. That's why wealthy veterans often delay gratification. Not forever, just long enough for their assets to begin working for them. One of my favorite sayings is this: don't let your lifestyle become so expensive that your freedom becomes unaffordable. Think about that for a moment. Financial freedom isn't measured by what you own. It's measured by how many choices you still have. Can you retire when you want? Can you say no to unhealthy work environments? Can you help someone you love without going into debt yourself? Can you weather an unexpected emergency? Freedom is one of the greatest forms of wealth, and assets help create freedom. Status often creates obligations. Remember the 2 veterans we met at the beginning of this video? One accumulated payments, the other accumulated assets. From the outside, they may have looked similar for years, but eventually time revealed the difference. Time always tells the truth. Now, let's move to decision number 4. Never stop investing just because you retire. I think this surprises many people. Some individuals treat retirement like a finish line. I retired. I'm done. I don't need to invest anymore. But retirement isn't the end of your financial life. For many people, retirement lasts 25 or even 30 years. That's an incredible long period of time. Your money still has work to do. Inflation doesn't retire. Healthcare costs don't retire. Life doesn't retire. So why should your investments? Now, that doesn't mean taking unnecessary risk. It means understanding that your financial strategy simply changes. Instead of building wealth as aggressively as you did during your working years, you're now balancing growth, preservation, and income. That's a different objective, but it's still an objective. I've met retirees who continue modest, disciplined investing throughout retirement. The results often surprise even them. Their wealth continued growing while simultaneously supporting their lifestyle. Compounding is an amazing force. It doesn't ask whether you're employed, it simply rewards patience. The challenge is psychological. People often think, I've finally arrived, I've earned the right to stop. And in many ways, you have. But stopping your career doesn't necessarily mean stopping wise financial habits. One of the greatest gifts you can leave your family isn't simply money. It's options. Options for education, options for entrepreneurship, options during emergencies, options during difficult seasons of life. Wise investing creates options long after they're gone. That's legacy, not simply a portfolio. Now, if you've noticed something about today's discussion, it's this. None of these decisions require extraordinary intelligence. They require consistency, and consistency often beats brilliance. The veteran who quietly makes good decisions year after year will often outperform the person constantly chasing the next exciting opportunity. Steady almost always beats spectacular over long periods of time. Which brings us to decision number 5. And this one is probably the easiest money you'll ever keep because it's already available to you. Decision number 5, use every benefit you've earned. This builds on what we discussed earlier, but it's important enough to stand on its own. One of the habits I've noticed among financially successful veterans is that they refuse to leave value just sitting on the table. If they've earned a benefit, they learn about it. If they qualify for a program, they understand how it works. If the state offers property tax exemption, educational assistance, employment opportunities, reduced vehicle registration fees, or other veteran benefits, they find out about them before they need them. Why? Because every dollar you don't have to spend is a dollar you can invest somewhere else. Think about that, okay? Sometimes building wealth isn't only about earning more money. Sometimes it's about keeping more of the money you've already earned. I've often said that one of the easiest raises you'll ever receive is learning how to maximize the benefits you've already earned through service. I've seen veterans save thousands of dollars every year simply because they took the time to understand what was available to them. Healthcare, education, property taxes, insurance, burial benefits, state veterans programs, military discounts, commissary privileges, exchange privileges, recreation opportunities. The list goes on and on and on. Now, I'm not suggesting that every benefit applies to every veteran. What I am suggesting is that financially wise veterans are curious. They ask questions. They research. They plan. They don't assume someone else will tell them everything that they need to know. That's one of the reasons I started this channel, because I watched too many veterans discover benefits years they could have made a meaningful difference in their lives. Knowledge truly is wealth, and in this case, it can literally become financial wealth. Now, let's move to decision number 6. Think in decades, not months. This may be the greatest mindset shift of all. Average financial decisions are usually made with this month's mind and budget. Wealth building decisions are often made with the next 20 years in mind. That's a completely different perspective. Imagine standing in the store looking at an expensive purchase. Most people ask, can I afford this? Wealthy people often ask, What will this decision cost me 20 years from now? Those are not the same question. Let's say you're about to spend $20,000 on something you really don't need. The purchase itself may not ruin you financially, but what if that same $20,000 remained invested for 20 years? That would be income. More importantly, what opportunities would it create? When you begin thinking this way, something interesting happens. You become less emotional with money. Impulse purchases lose their appeal because you begin seeing every dollar not simply for what it is today, but for what it could become tomorrow. Now, I don't want you to misunderstand me. This isn't about becoming afraid to spend money. After all, when you die, you can't take it with you. It's about becoming intentional. Some experiences are worth every penny. Traveling with your family, helping your children, supporting a cause you believe in, creating memories you'll treasure forever. Those are wonderful investments in life. For example, I'm headed to Kenya soon, where I will be spending 45 days traveling around the country. I will be going to Mombasa. I'll be going to Diani Beach, going on a safari with the Samburu people of northern Kenya, and traveling around Nairobi, visiting Westland and Kilimani and various other areas around Kenya. Those are important. They create wonderful memories. The point isn't to eliminate spending. The point is to eliminate mindless spending. Purpose should always direct your money, not emotion. I've often noticed that financially peaceful people don't necessarily earn dramatically more than everyone else. They simply give every dollar an assignment before it arrives. Money without purpose tends to disappear. Money with purpose tends to multiply. And that brings us to our final decision. Decision number 7, okay? So, let's talk about that. Decision number 7. Build financial peace, not financial appearance. I want to finish where we started. Remember the two veterans from the beginning of today's conversation? One constantly worried about money. The other lived remarkably in peace. The difference wasn't just the size of their accounts, it was the quality of their lives. One spent years trying to appear successful. The other spent years becoming secure. Eventually, security became visible. You know, one of the things that I've learned over the years is that genuinely wealthy people often don't feel the need to prove they are wealthy. Remember that. Genuinely wealthy people could really care less what other people think. They don't need constant validation. They don't measure their success by what strangers think of them. Instead, they value freedom, time, family, health. Those are the things that matter. Purpose, generosity, and peace. Those things don't usually show up in a driveway. They show up in a life. If you follow this channel for any length of time, you've probably heard me say that money is a wonderful servant, but a terrible master. Money should support your purpose. Your purpose should never become serving money. Real wealth is waking up without financial fear. Real wealth is having choices. Real wealth is sleeping peacefully because you've prepared wisely. Real wealth is helping someone else without wondering whether you'll make your own mortgage payment. Real wealth is leaving your family better prepared than you were. That's wealth. And here's the beautiful part. Every one of the 7 decisions we've discussed today is available to almost every military family. You don't need perfect timing. You don't need a 6-figure investment account. You don't need to win the lottery. You simply need consistency. Now, let's go back one final time to those 2 veterans. When I first met them, I wondered why their lives looked so different. Now I know. It wasn't because of one extraordinary decision. It was because of hundreds of ordinary decisions made faithfully, repeated patiently over many years. That's how wealth is really built. Not overnight, not through luck, not through shortcuts, but through wisdom applied consistently. Now, if you're still serving, begin making those decisions today. If you're preparing to retire, this is the perfect time to establish those habits. And if you've already retired and you're thinking, I wish I had started sooner, well, let me encourage you with this. The second best time to make a wise financial decision is today. You cannot rewrite yesterday, but you absolutely can influence tomorrow. And tomorrow has a remarkable way of rewarding today's discipline. Before we close, I'd like to leave you with one final thought. One day your children, your grandchildren, or perhaps another young service member may ask you how you built financial security. I hope your answer won't be, I got lucky. I hope you'll be able to say, I simply made one good decision after another, and I stayed faithful to those decisions even when no one was watching. Because that's how lasting wealth is built. One decision, one habit, 1 year at a time. Now, if you found value in today's conversation, I'd appreciate it if you subscribe to the channel. Share this video with another veteran or military family, and let me know down in the comments, which one of these 7 decisions do you think has the greatest impact on building long-term wealth? I genuinely enjoy reading your thoughts. And so there you have it. Until next time, continue serving with excellence, continue preparing with wisdom, and continue building a life of purpose, not just for yourself, but for those who will come after you. I wish you all blessings and blessings. Shalom.